Welcome to a special Kickstarter Spotlight edition of Pants Optional. I'm your host, Jason Bennett, Chief Editor of Pop Cult HQ. Today, I have with me, you might know him from a variety of projects, either from the Go West miniseries, the Fear Diaries, Days to Come, the BOXMASTERS with Billy Bob Thornton. He's also the creator and writer of the Franken Ghost books, and has a new title, Cold Dead Hands, coming out the end of October. And if that's not enough, what we're really here to talk about today is he's coming back to Kickstarter with his new project, a new mini-series featuring his beloved Warcorns, Warcorns Combat Unicorns for Hire. Please welcome Redding, California's own Garrett Gunn. Garrett, how are you?
Hey, good. How are you, man?
Doing all right, doing all right. How are things up your way with the fires and everything?
I mean, okay for right now, like surprisingly, because usually this is like ground zero. Like we were like ground zero for the car fire and like crazy shit, and now it's like there's fires just like around us everywhere. Like there's like a nice little buffer.
Right. What's air quality? Is it bad there?
Today is pretty good.
Okay.
I got a little better yesterday, and then today it's pretty decent. Last week was brutal. Last week it was like, it looked like the apocalypse here. It was crazy. Yeah. It was like, everything was orange and red and dark. And it was like, I woke up at like, I think it was like last Saturday. I was like, we had played D&D until like 4 a.m. Yeah. And I got up at like 10 and it felt like it was 8 p.m. Like it was, because it was so dark. Couldn't see anything. Right. It was crazy. It's fine. It's doomsday. It's fitting for everything else going on in the world. Why not?
You know, it wouldn't be 2020 without a little
doomsday,
fear of the apocalypse.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, hey, let's talk about your new project that you're bringing to Kickstarter.
Totally. So a little bit about Warcorns. Warcorns came out last year as a one-shot. It was meant to be a very like ridiculous sort of like experiment of, let's just like see. I wanted to make a book that was like a militaristic parody of like people I knew from being in the military. And so I was like, I'll make this one shot, see if anybody likes it. If it's bad, it's a one shot. We can just pretend it never happened. It like exploded on Kickstarter, got really popular. We ended up like shipping it out early last year. And then since it came out, people have nonstop hit me up like, when are we getting more Warcorns? We need more Warcorns. And I was like, fuck, all right, I guess we got to do more. And so we decided to not just do another one shot, but to launch a series. So this campaign that starts on October 1st is the beginning, the first sort of short arc. We're doing it in arcs of 4 books. So this is the first arc, number 1 through 4. And we're sort of going like totally back to the beginning of the Warcorns, when Big Sarge, Floater, Ghani, Arrow, when they all joined Warcorns Division and sort of like go on their first mission. So they've like just met, they go through basic training, they get assigned to their first duty station, they show up and like shit's already hitting the fan. And they're like, well, we're going on our first mission.
And that's what I really noticed with that first issue, you know, just entitled Back to Basics.
Yeah, Back to Basics.
And what I found was really appealing, especially for someone new to this series who may not be familiar with how they tie in the Franklin and Gunn and with that one shot, or however, this first issue really lays a nice groundwork because you're getting the backstory of how they all started. You're really fleshing out the different personalities that each of these members have of the Warcorns division. So you're really getting to know these characters and kind of what they're gone through and the build up to obviously where they're going.
Well, and that's what we wanted. We wanted people to be able, if you hadn't read the one shot, we wanted you to be able to just like jump into this thing. And so it was sort of like, you know, back to basics is a very common military term of like when you're all fucked up, like when somebody's just a fucking mess, you're like, well, back to basics, like start over. Like this is a mess. So we wanted this to be like a jumping off point for new fans of, people who were like discovering the series and stuff. So as far as the campaign, like we have so many things planned. Not only do we have a great just regular book, we're trying to keep the tiers very low. There's only like 4 or 5 different tiers you can choose from. We've got a normal cover of the book, trade paperback, which is just done by the cover or the series artist Kit Wallace. And then we have our Kickstarter exclusive, which is the Full Metal Jacket homage with the helmet from like the Full Metal Jacket poster.
Is that Ryan Kincaid on that one?
No, that is the Chris Williams did that one. Oh, okay. Chris Williams, and it was colored by Mr. Pie. It's amazing. Yeah. Chris is he was the one that did the chromium variant for the last Warcorns book that everybody loved, with them all standing there with the machine guns, a rainbow exploding behind them. Right. Called the Michael Bay cover. So every time I was like, we're doing another Warcorns book, you've got to do a cover. So he did that one. We brought Ryan Kincaid in to do some exclusive stretch goal stuff that we're doing. So we've got we've got we're doing a reprint of the one shot for people where it's got some new characters on it that are getting introduced in this series, and there's like a kind of a humor parody cover of the original one shot. But really there's not a lot. I mean, this book is a 100-page graphic novel because it's the whole series in one book. So we tried to keep it very simple, very affordable, very while also giving us room to make the series, making it not something crazy though, like $30 and you get this 100-page book plus all these stretch goals. We've got some really cool stretch goals in terms of like collectible metal trading cards. You can add on to onto your pledge like copies of the book, digital libraries, Franklin and Ghost trade paperbacks if you want to get like the full experience of like the universe. You can even add on for $20 the Franklin and Ghost board game from Deepwater Games. Nice. So nice. It's a lot, and we're trying to, everything we're adding in this campaign is we want to be the best thing we can possibly make. So all the artists we brought in to do exclusives, everybody was top tier talent that like, we're like, if we're doing a variant, like it's got to be this person because they're going to make the best one.
If anyone who hasn't experienced one of your Kickstarter campaigns and been a part of that process, to see you not only as a creator, but also running a campaign and what that process is like, to anyone who might have reservations or just need a little extra push to go and join this campaign, Garrett is probably the top, hands down, Kickstarter person that I've worked with, and I'm somehow I became a super backer. I'm on Kickstarter too much.
You back a lot of stuff, dude.
But Garrett he's on top of it. He communicates extremely well. Great updates. Gets all of his stuff out on time. He's like one of the most dependable and reliable people that, especially when it comes to setting target goals for when products are going to get shipped or whatever. He somehow always manages to get it done in time, and it's really impressive.
I watch a lot of people, like their frustration with Kickstarter and like with backing stuff, and like I know people that have backed things that were like 5 years ago. And they're like, I've never gotten it. And like, maybe I won't, maybe I will, who the fuck knows? Like, I'll never back another Kickstarter because that was such a bad experience. And I'm like, that sucks, because all of us that like, it stresses me out to no end of like, I'll have like 2 people that don't have their rewards yet. And I'm like, oh God, I've got to like pay extra for like rush shipping because I need them to have their things. Right. And then like something will show up at a backer's house and they're like, oh, I didn't get, this one thing. And they're like in Canada and it's going to cost me like $40 more to ship a replacement or something. And I'm like, whatever, they've got to have their books, because if you're taking the chance on somebody throwing money at some campaign, hoping that something's going to actually get made and actually, like created and produced and distributed, like it's your responsibility as like the person running that Kickstarter that like that person has a great experience. So that not only do you get, keep them as a customer, but you don't fuck it up for everybody else.
Well, right. And that's something that comes out. It's that good customer service, good customer experience that you deliver. That's it's really commendable. And most Kickstarter backers who've done it enough times understand things happen, especially with comic books, depending on where it is in the creative process. Oh, their artist got sick or what, things happen, and they understand that. But the main thing is if you're not communicating to them,
Yep.
that's what pisses them off. And as long as you're
Yep.
updating them, keeping them in the loop, they're more willing to be.
Everybody's
accepting
cool.
of
Like
that.
like everybody's really awesome. Like I mean, there's been numerous times that I'm like we did a book like when COVID first hit, and I was like, oh shit, like China's shut down, like we can't get our print run like for an extra 2 weeks. And I was like, look, I'm sorry, there's a 2-week delay on printing. You know, this is where it's at. It's going to be shipped on this date to me. This is when I'm supposed to have it, and I'll have it out to you. Everybody comments is like, dude, thanks so much for letting us know. Like, no worries. Like, you know, maybe 1 out of 600 people is like, oh, that's bullshit. Fuck you. Like,
Well, I think a lot of people enjoy the fact that they get to be a part of this process.
Yeah,
And you know, they
totally.
get to see a little bit of the other side of creating comic books.
Totally.
The
Yeah.
process for working between writers and artists, and the
Yep.
process of crowdfunding, and hearing that how shipping works. I mean, there's a lot of
Totally,
dynamics
yeah.
really to the overall getting a comic book into someone's hands from Kickstarter.
I'm like that too. Like I'm, I really like, you know, being the writer. It's hard sometimes because you know, you create something so long ago that like by the time it's gone through the process of being created, you're like, you feel so like out of touch with it. And like, so I'm a person that really enjoys like progress photos and like seeing something transform from a conceptual idea to this finished product. So I try to always, when I'm post updates and post things, I'm like, dude, look at, this was the inks, and like now look at the colors, and like the letters are on it, and like boom, 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 boom. Like show people that process because it's awesome.
On your new series, you brought on illustrator Kit Wallace and letterer Dave Lentz.
Yes.
How'd they join on to become part of the Warcorns division of your creative team?
So Dave has been, you know, was this person that I found by like pure chance. Like I didn't know him from anything. Like I found him on Facebook, and like I really liked some of his work. And at the time I was working on some other projects. And, you know, he kind of inquired with me of like, oh, like, what is this Last Wolf Legion thing? Like, is that like something people can be a part of? Like, whatever. And so I kind of told him about our company, and I was like, look, if you want to come in and be kind of like our design guy, we can work something out for that. So he came on very quickly and like took all these properties we were working on, like made killer logos for them, designed the books out, did all of these things. And I was like, God damn, like you're really good at this. This is like, the stuff he was designing was great. And he was like, yeah, I also letter if you need anything lettered. And I was like, fuck, absolutely. So I've decided, you know, that the way that Dave works is very, you know, he experiments a lot, which I really like, because he'll do something that's like not traditional and is super weird and wacky. And even if you're like, yeah, I hate that, I don't like it, he'll be like, okay, whatever. And like, he'll scrap it, but like, he'll always give you some like weird shit first to see like what he can do, you know? And that to me is Warcorns. Like Warcorns is always supposed to be the most ridiculous, over the top, Lisa Frank on steroids, you know, reader experience. So like, I was like, Dave, I want you to try to fuck with Warcorns, like see what you can do or whatever. And he came in and like did like just the craziest bold gradient lettering and you know, weird speech balloons and like tons of stuff. And I was like, dude, you are 100% the perfect person to work on this book.
Nice.
Kit coming into it also, Kit was working on something else with me. And there had been some discussions, you know, at the publisher level and like company level of, you know, we wanted to sort of it was hard with the first Warcorns book, because with Franklin and Ghost being in development as an animated series, and the Warcorns being in the Franklin and Ghost universe, there was like a disconnect between the way that Warcorns looked and the way that like Franklin and Ghost looks, like the comics. And we were like, okay, we want to pull Warcorns sort of into this, like the same kind of look, right? We want it to be more animated, cartoonish, you know, ridiculous vibes, rather than like the more traditional big buff badass unicorns. We wanted these guys to look like you dropped LSD, like when you read this book. And Kit's style is so unbelievably like refreshing and ridiculous and eccentric that like, again, him and Dave, I was like, this is so weird. Like you guys are on a whole other, you know, level with the way you create things. Kit sends me the craziest shit. A lot of stuff in the book Kit just came up with. Like random, you'll see like random little unicorns, like almost like imaginary friends floating throughout the book. And
Yeah,
they're always just like, yeah, fuck yeah, like all this like
on
cool
the
shit.
shoulder, and
on the shoulder, and they're like talking to people, but like it's all imaginary. Like they're shitting rainbows everywhere. Like it's so weird, and that's all Kit. Kit's just like, I thought this was funny, and I'm like, it is funny. Like that's great. Like it's perfect, and that's how Kit creates. Like Kit's just this like wonder kid of like, I don't even know. He just took the idea and was like, I was like, look, dude, you do whatever you want. Here's the baseline. You know, if you want to take something over the top, do it. Do your thing. And he did.
Like an animated feel to it.
Totally, yeah. So that was, Kevin Stokes did a killer job on the first Warcorns book. Like he absolutely killed it, and I loved it so much. Nick Tourist coloring it. They did phenomenal. But like this new book is so much closer to like an animated style of like how we want them to look in the actual TV show that we couldn't get away from it. Like there's no way. Like it's so perfect that we were like, fuck, we can't make it this way. We have to do this. We have to do this crazy route. So
cool.
Yeah,
it seems like you have a lot even to build off, beyond just, this group of anthropomorphic battle-ready equestrians. You have what kind of piqued my curiosity, Pegasus Corps.
Yes, Pegasus Corps is amazing. Yeah.
So will we get to learn more about them in
100%. Yeah.
Okay.
So when we were creating this sort of like, we didn't really learn much about Warcorns Division in the one shot. And so when we kind of went back to the beginning, we're like, look, we got to kind of explain this world and like, give people some little teases of like other things that happen here. And all of them come from a place called Equestrian Command, which is basically the world that they live in. It's the centralized government that like runs their planet. Within Equestrian Command, there is 3 sort of divisions that make up the planet of people. Everybody has a job. It's a very like utopian, everybody does their part to do, whatever. There's, obviously the Warcorns, who are the, law enforcement and military and everything else. There is Pegasus Corps, which is like their scholars and their doctors and they're like the very like, high to do, scholarly positions, like politicians and doctors and all these kinds of things. And then you have the Workhorse division. Workhorses is logistics. They do it's all blue collar work. So it's all, they do the mining, they do the cleaning, they do the, road work, they do everything. So when you sort of like come of age at Equestrian Command, it's like the Sorting Hat in Harry Potter, right? Like you show up and they're like, you'd be good for Workhorse.
I felt that in the first issue when
exactly.
They're all registering.
So as they're getting kind of sorted through, you've got like Floater who comes from a family that was like in Pegasus Corps, and he's like, well, ma'am, like I am ready for my wings. And she's like, fuck no, Warcorn. And he's like, no, like I don't want to go. And you've got Gunny who's like, I care about nothing else. Like I just want to go fuck some people up. So you get to kind of see how that process works. They're in processing, and there's a lot of stuff that like is blended in there of like my real life experience in basic training and AIT, and then going to duty station. Like a lot of the stuff that happens to Big Sarge really happened to me during my experience. The conversations he has with people. That's also a big part of why he's called Big Sarge, because when I joined the military, having the last name Gunn, I was subject to so much dumb like ridicule and like jokes and dumb shit that like I'm like, okay, well, this main character is going to be called Big Sarge. Like his last name is, people think that's a nickname. His name is literally Big Sarge. His last name and first name, Big Sarge. So like you're going to see a lot more in the second issue of like him in processing at his unit, getting a new squad leader, and like sort of the interactions he has with people based around his name and how much they want to like give him shit for it. So we're trying to like really build out this universe of how, how things work, how things fit together between these different commands. And you are definitely going to see more Pegasus Corps. You're also going to see, I'll give you a little Pop Cult HQ exclusive.
Ooh, okay.
you're going to see in the near future, probably in the beginning of next year, we're going to be coming out with 2 new sub-series of Warcorns, which is Warcorns International and Warcorns Cosmic. So where you're going to kind of get to see a different aspect of those things, more specialized teams within Warcorns division, Pegasus Corps, Workhorse, everything.
And like any kind of comparisons to how like Justice League did?
Yes.
So they had Justice League International, and you start
exactly. So International kind of follows, like, you know, after you kind of see the threats that show up in this miniseries, Warcorns division is kind of like, yeah, we should probably put some boots on the ground on different planets, and just kind of like have some sleeper agents out there in case some shit pops off. And Warcorns International kind of follows these this group of Warcorns that get sent to Earth, but they're working on like very outdated intel on like what Earth is like. So they all kind of land in different spots around the globe. One lands in Japan, and all he knows is about like shogun warriors. So he shows up and thinks he has to be a samurai. One of them lands like in Scotland, and he knows of like William Wallace and Braveheart, even though they think Braveheart's like a real, like it's like a documentary. Right. There's one that lands in Russia, like Soviet era Russia, like, because all he knows about is like the Cold War. So like he lands in Russia and he's like a super, like, you know, very Soviet era Russian. There's a Canadian Mountie. There's like a one that lands like in New York and is like the working class, like in a cubicle, ginormous body, you know, thing. So there's everywhere. There's like them, and they're kind of this team that have to like come together to like protect Earth from like threats. Warcorns Cosmic is more like galaxy based, like Guardians of the Galaxy-esque, like more cosmic threats, exploring the cosmos kind of stuff. It's a lot. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, you really you got a lot of plans for this universe.
Rounding it out, man. Yeah, rounding it out.
And so you're definitely obviously having a lot of fun with the series and the things you can do with it.
Yes.
I thought I noticed a few Easter eggs in the first book, and
did you?
Yeah, there's a couple things I noticed, like the Kickstarter coin from. I saw that one, caught that right away. One of the villain, or one of these guys on, was shown. I'm trying not to give really anything away, but kind of had a mutated Invader Zim kind of look.
Yep.
Okay, I don't know. Okay, so you know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
A couple names in there seem familiar. I saw Monday. I saw, you know, so.
Yep.
You're gonna have more fun with it like that in future issues as well.
Yep, absolutely. So the big thing to us was like, you know, we've always said, you know, this is a part of the Franklin and Ghost universe, and like Franklin and Ghost obviously were in the one shot. But this goes way back in, you know, this book is going back in time before. And so what we wanted to do is like to kind of bring people full circle into this, you know, into the Franklin and Ghost thing, like reconnect it. It was very obvious that like we had to start at a point where like in the Franklin and Ghost universe, we kind of know that Delilah, you know, escaped from Dephilion before Franklin and Ghost, and sort of like there was like something weird that happened on Dephilion that they left and whatever. So it was very, you know, when we started this series, we're like, well, obviously the thing that they should be set out to investigate is this planet that like just had this like big breach of security, and these people left and like crazy shit happened. And it allows us to bring Delilah and those other people into the fold, like, you know, pre-Franklin and Ghost showing up, you know, like you don't, they don't exist yet. So we wanted to make sure and bring a lot in, because like you said, when you read it, if you've read Franklin and Ghost, you're like, wait a minute, DF002, I know who that is. Like, that's Delilah. What the fuck? Like, why is she in this? Or why is, you know, whatever. Like, there's multiple things like that we try. You don't have to know them, but if you're familiar with the universe, you're going to go, wait a sec. Like, that was, you know, it adds to the experience.
And definitely more of a reason to get in on the campaign where you can get that older version.
Totally.
And get up to speed and see this kind of shared universe that's really blown up. Anything else you want to plug? We have October.
Cold Dead Hands. Cold Dead Hands.
October 28th, is that correct?
October 28th, the first issue comes out in comic shops.
Got some exclusive variants. I saw that Glenn Fabry, and
Right? Just like the cover artist from Preacher.
I got him to sign one of my Preacher comics, man. And when I saw that,
we've got like Derek Robertson, the artist of The Boys and Transmetropolitan, and like a bajillion other things. You know, he did a ratio variant for #1 that comic shops got. You know, we've got some really cool other retailer incentives. Hive Comics did a really awesome Peach Momoko variant that's available like right now as of today, I think at 2 p.m. Yeah. You know, and we've got some other ones planned for future issues. You know, we just kind of the other day, Travis McIntyre, who owns Source Point Press, was like, you know, hey, we want to bring in somebody really big for the new Warcorns series. Like, who's on your wish list? And I was like, oh shit. Like, all right. So I gave him a list, and like one of the people on there, he's like, yeah, we can get that. Like, they're in. Like, he messaged me back, like, they're in. Like, you know, do that. It's going to be amazing. But, you know, for Cold Dead Hands, we really tried to like, this is a very different book than like anything I've ever done before. It's, you know, it still kind of has my dumb humor in it, but it's definitely more supernatural, weird, thriller-esque stuff that wasn't supposed to just be as much of a joke. So we really tried to like step our game up with like bringing in like really top-notch talent to do variants and covers and even the interiors. Lee Malusky killed it on interiors. But #2 is still available for pre-order at local comic shops right now. And #3 will be available for order next month in previews. So you guys should check it out because it's pretty awesome.
You can go and score a Cold Dead Hands bandana at lastwolflegion.com.
Yes.
Also,
yes, you can.
Definitely catch up on a lot of Garrett's books, slabs, other things. So October 1st, coming to Kickstarter. It's Warcorns, Combat Unicorns for Hire. Garrett, thank you so much for taking the time, man.
Dude, thank you. I appreciate you so much.
Campaign, man. It's gonna be
the best.
No.
Absolutely.
All right.